Imagine walking into a room that smells of lavender and wood dust. A room built for laughter. A child's joy should radiate her like sunlight. But as you step over the threshold, the air thins. The laughter hasn't just stopped. It's been replaced by a suffocating stillness. A quiet so heavy, it feels like a physical weight against your chest. In the center of the bed sits a gift. It is a teddy bear. At first glance, it is perfection. Honey-colored fur, stitched paws, and glass button eyes that catch the light. But watch those eyes long enough, and the glint starts to feel intentional. This is not a toy. It is a vessel. We are going to explore the razor-thin veil between childhood comfort and the predatory darkness that hides behind it. Lock your doors, turn down the lights, and whatever you do, don't look it in the eye. There is a specific frequency to a happy home. You know it instinctively. The vibration of floorboards under running feet, the chaotic harmony of a family at dinner, the bright, unfiltered sound of a child's laughter. It is a shield against the world outside, but imagine, for a moment, that the shield doesn't just crack. Imagine it is used against you. Imagine walking into that same room and feeling the air curdling. The laughter hasn't faded. It has been surgically removed, replaced by a silence so absolute it rings in your ears like a scream. You look for a reason, a broken window, a stranger in the hallway. But there's nothing. Only a gift sitting innocently on a pile of rumpled blankets. I am FJ, and this is Horror Gaze. Tonight, we aren't looking for monsters under the bed. We are looking at the things we invite into our homes. We are dissecting the anatomy of a betrayal, the moment a symbol of safety transforms into a sentinel of dread. Welcome to the investigation of The Gift. The transition was subtle. It started with the sensory distortions. The child began to claim the bear was heavy. Not the weight of cotton and wire, but the weight of a leaden stare. Then came the auditory anomalies. In the dead of night, the baby monitor didn't pick up crying. It picked up the sound of rhythmic wet breathing, not from the crib, but from the floor. Objects began to migrate. A toy train found in a locked basement. A silver rattle discovered under the floorboards. The geography of the home was changing, reconfiguring itself around the presence of the bear. The parents described a feeling of being hunted in their own hallways. Every time they passed the nursery, the temperature plummeted. They would find the child staring into the bear's glass eyes, not in play, but in a trance-like state of submission. The line between a beloved companion and a silent captor wasn't just blurred. It was erased. Love had become the bait, and the gift was the trap. The object in question appeared unremarkable at first. A vintage design, honey-colored fur, and 2 glass buttons for eyes. To the child who received it, it was a protector. To the parents, it was a charming relic, but the provenance of this toy was a labyrinth of closed doors. It wasn't bought in a store. It was discovered in the wreckage of an estate that hadn't seen a living soul in 40 years. The stitches weren't uniform. They were tight, aggressive, as if the maker were trying to keep something from leaking out. As the child began to bond with the gift, the house began to lose its equilibrium. It started with the sensory glitches, the smell of damp earth in a room with no plants, the feeling of being watched by something only 6 inches tall. The glass eyes of the bear seemed to possess a depth that shouldn't be possible, a way of catching the light even in total darkness. The family began to realize that this wasn't just a toy. It was a bridge, a connection to a history that had been buried for a reason, now sitting at the foot of their child's bed, listening to every heartbeat. Within a week, the atmosphere in the home had reached a breaking point. The child, once vibrant, became withdrawn, refusing to leave the bear's side. They were caught in a constant, low-volume dialogue with the toy. Not the imaginative play of a toddler, but a frantic, desperate whispering. Objects began to relocate. A kitchen knife found in the toy box. A photograph of the family, found with the faces neatly scratched out. The parents described a sensation of unwelcome weight. The feeling that the house was now occupied by an entity that was slowly pushing them out of their own lives. The nights became a gauntlet of terror. They would wake to the sound of something small and soft dragging itself across the hardwood. When the lights were flicked on, the bear would be exactly where it was left, but its fur would be matted and cold, as if it had just come in from the rain. The line between a beloved companion and a predatory intruder had vanished. The gift was no longer a gesture of love. It was a claim of ownership. Driven by a primal instinct to protect their child, the father took the bear. He didn't just throw it away. He drove it to a construction site 10 miles away and dropped it into a deep, open trench that was scheduled to be filled with concrete the following morning. He watched it disappear into the mud. He went home, locked every door, and sat in the living room with his shotgun, waiting for the sun to rise. He felt a sense of triumph. The weight had lifted. But at 3 a.m., the baby monitor crackled to life. It wasn't a cry. It was the sound of the child laughing. A hollow, rhythmic sound that chilled the father to his core. He ran to the nursery and threw open the door. The child was sitting up, holding the bear. The same bear, but it was no longer honey-colored. It was soaked in wet gray cement. Its glass eyes were shattered, yet it seemed to stare with more intensity than ever before. The father looked at the window. It was locked from the inside. He looked at the floor. There were no footprints. The object hadn't been brought back. It had simply returned. It was then that the child looked at him and spoke in a voice that didn't belong to a human, saying, "You can't bury what you already invited in." The family was gone by dawn. They left the house exactly as it was, afraid that taking even a single suitcase might allow the shadow to follow them. To this day, the property remains on the market, but no one stays for more than a night. They say the silence in that nursery is too loud to bear. They say that if you sit very still, you can hear the sound of cotton moving against wood. We trust our senses to tell us when we are in danger. We trust our homes to be our sanctuaries. But what happens when the threat is something you hug tight against your chest? When the darkness doesn't crawl through the window, but is handed to you in gift wrap? I want you to look around your room right now. Look at the mementos on your shelves, the childhood toys in your closet. Do you really know where they came from? Have you ever noticed them in a different spot than where you left them? Tell me your stories in the comments. I read everyone. If this investigation chilled you, join the collective by subscribing to Horror Gaze by FJ. We have many more secrets to exhume. Sleep well tonight. And perhaps move that old doll to another room, just to be sure.